Hello and welcome to the Strategic Business Leader online classes for December 2018 examination. I am Kashif Kamran, your tutor. Now this is my third lecture on the Strategic Business Leader classes. And in the last two classes, we were exploring corporate governance, and that exploration will continue into the class today. Now, towards the end of my last class, we were exploring the Menlo metrics, and we did utilize a case study on Menlo metrics where we had Mr. Krull and Save the Bird. Now, I'll be resuming my discussion today into my third lecture right from the Menlo metrics, and will continue building our journey from the Menlo metrics onwards. Okay, so let's revisit and re-explore the Menlo metrics and then continue the journey onwards from Menlo metrics. Now, in terms of the Menlo metrics we were discussing into the end of the last class, this metrics was very important for a director, for a board of director, because the board of directors who are sitting in the boardroom, they have to take an holistic picture and they have to take an overview of their organization inside and outside, and they have to see as board of directors how many stakeholders connects with the business, within the business and outside the business, and then they need to realize how many of these stakeholders should we classify as minimal efforts, how many of these stakeholders should we classify as keep informed, how many of these stakeholders will we classify as keep satisfied and key players. So it is upon the board of directors, right? It is upon the perceptions of the board of directors that how the board of directors perceives the stakeholders. Now we know with any organization, there are so many stakeholders who are connected with the company. Now let's get to an illustration of this Menlo metrics, and let's understand it from a different context so that we can exit from the topic Menlo metrics and progress further. Now, in terms of my word file, which I am using consistently over the last 2 days, now this is the day 3 today, and on the day 3, we need to build upon the first topic, which again is the Menlo metrics. And this is just a revision of the Menlo metrics from the class from the day 2. Now from the day 2, if you look at the Menlo metrics, the very first thing we need to understand is that in the board of directors or the strategic management needs to take a holistic picture, the 360-degree picture, right? So the board of directors and the strategic management needs to take a holistic picture of all stakeholders linked with the company. So at the very first stage, being a board of directors, you need to take a holistic picture of all the stakeholders you think are connected with your company. Now, bigger the company, complex the company, larger the company, obviously will have more stakeholders. And again, smaller the company will have very few stakeholders. So when the business starts to grow and when the business starts to increase the size, there are many stakeholders who starts connecting with the business. And when the business spreads from one geographical boundary to another geographical boundary, the stakeholder keeps accumulating. Imagine these multinational companies, and these multinational companies have so many stakeholders because they're not just in one country, they are in so many countries. So as the business starts to grow in size, the number of stakeholders who are connected with the company keeps increasing. So the board of directors needs to take a holistic picture of all the stakeholders who are connected with the company. Now, once they have taken the holistic picture of the stakeholders who are connected with them, what should they do? Once they took the holistic picture, they should then analyze them. They should then analyze the stakeholders, right? Once they know the holistic picture of the stakeholders, they should then start to analyze these stakeholders. They should start to analyze these stakeholders. Now we know the analyzing is done in two grounds. They would analyze these stakeholders in terms of their power, and they would start to analyze these stakeholders in terms of their interest, the interest they have in the company's activity, the interest they have in the company's affair, the interest they have in the day-to-day functions of the company. Now, you need to analyze the stakeholders very carefully. You need to analyze them on the context of the power, and you need to analyze them on the context of your interest. And obviously, a stakeholder who has power would obviously be the one who has influence. So the board of directors needs to take a very careful picture of those stakeholders who have power, because the one who have power would ultimately be dominating the position and the stakeholder position. So you need to analyze the power and interest, because what will that help you? Now, the moment you analyze the power can be high and the power can be low. And the same ways the interest can be high and the interest can be low. So you need to analyze the interest, you need to analyze the power, and you need to identify whether that is a significant power, or whether that is an insignificant power, or whether that is a significant interest, or whether that is an insignificant interest. Now just for example, just for the sake of example, right? I talk about number one, my factory workers. Now I need to consider what is the interest of my factory workers. I'll say the interest of my factory workers, the interest is only in the salaries, is in the salaries and wages, or the interest is only in a clean working environment, that they're working in a clean working environment. That's the only interest. So I would not be concerned about factory workers because they have a very low interest. They only have interest in getting the salaries and wages on a weekly basis or on a monthly basis, and preferably working in a clean working environment. Now we know these factory workers are operational staffs. So the factory workers have a low interest, right? And they have a low power. But imagine that there are factory workers. There are factory workers, and there is a trade union. There is a trade union attached with factory workers. Now see how the situation changes. When we were speaking of the factory workers alone, perhaps the factory workers alone for any organization are minimal efforts. But if you see these factory workers alone, they could have been classified as minimal efforts for the business. But when you look at the factory workers in terms of a trade union, that the factory workers also have a trade union and a trade union who looks after them. Now see the significance. Now we know that the trade union is very volatile. The trade union is very volatile, right? And the trade union wants the protection of the factory workers. And if anything goes wrong against the factory worker, the trade union can do the strikes. The trade union can do the agitation, and the trade union can even bring the working of an organization at a halt. We know trade unions are very explosive, right? The trade unions are very volatile. So the factory workers are supported by a trade union. So all of a sudden, the power increases, right? The power increases with the low interest. The low interest was just in the salaries and wages, right? But the power has increased. If the management does not increase the salaries of the factory workers, then automatically the trade union will protest for that. So the power increase with low interest, and automatically they become keep satisfied. Now you have to keep them satisfied, right? Why you want to keep them satisfied? Because there is a trade union. If you don't keep them satisfied, the trade union will go on strikes. The trade union will go on agitations. So see, we had the same phenomena, the factory workers, but see how factory workers changed the position. If the factory workers are without the trade union, then there are minimal efforts, right? But all of a sudden, when the factory worker gets a trade union, they 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 change their position and they keep satisfied. So that is exactly what the directors have to see. The directors have to see the holistic picture, and the directors have to analyze the power and interest of the stakeholders under the circumstances, because the circumstances would change the power and the circumstances would change the positions. So it is very important that the directors, when they are taking the holistic picture of all stakeholders linked with the company, also take into account the circumstances. Because if there is a change in circumstances, it will change the position of the stakeholder. Now take another example of the circumstances. See how important this is. This is such an important circumstances, because the way the management treats the stakeholder in a developed country, sorry, is very different from how the stakeholder treats the stakeholders in a developing country. The developing countries have different characteristics. The developed countries have different characteristics. Now, just for example, if I speak of a developed country, the pressure group in a developed country would be very volatile. The pressure group in a developed country will be very much protected. But in a developing country, even though there are pressure groups, but normally the pressure groups in developing countries does not have very strong influence, because they come under the bribery and corruption culture. Because most of the developing countries have a very high percentage of bribery and corruptions. And most of the time, the pressure group falls under them. So in a developed country, they can exercise very high power because they are supported, they're backed by the governments, they're backed by the institutions. But in a developed country, in a developing country, because the institutions are weak, in a developing country, because there is a high significance of bribery and corruption, so a lot of time the stakeholder power is not exerted. So in an exam paper, a developed country and a developing country will play a very crucial part. Now we know in a developed country, the customers have very high power because they are protected through laws and regulations. There are fundamental rights of customers. But in a developing country, even though the customers have the fundamental right, but they cannot exercise the fundamental right because again the institutions which supports the customer are weaker. So in the exam paper, the developed country is a very different circumstances and a developing country is a very different circumstances, which can change the context of a stakeholder. So please be aware of the developing country and please be aware of the developed country and how circumstances within those countries empower the stakeholder. So if one stakeholder is empowered in a developed country, might not be the case in a developing country, because developing countries have weaker institutions, right, and have weaker implementations. So if you are a director a director in a developing country, for you the metrics will be very different. And if you are a director in a developed country, for you the metrics will be very different. Number three, there are some stakeholders who have default powers, right? Stakeholders with default power, irrespective of the countries or the situations they are in. There are so many stakeholders, whether they are in America, they are in London, they are in Pakistan, they are in Dubai, they are in Singapore, will not make any difference to them because they have a default power irrespective of the countries or the situations they are in. For example, the government. The government remains powerful, right? Irrespective of countries or irrespective of situations. Number two, the institutional investor. Whether the institutional investor is in Asia or the institutional investor is in the Europe or the institutional investor is in America, will not make any difference. Same goes with your major customers. Your major customers are so important. The key customers. The key customers are so important. Suppose there is a customer to whom you make your 50% of the sales. Now imagine the customer to whom you make the 50% of the sales would obviously be your key customer. Your key customers, right? The customers to whom you make 50% of the sales will obviously be your key player, right? Key player in the metrics. And even your major suppliers. Your major suppliers, your key suppliers. Suppose it says the company imports raw material. The company imports raw material from a sole supplier. Now see how important this supplier is. The company imports raw material from a sole supplier, means from a single supplier. 100% raw material. 100% raw material is coming from a sole supplier. 100% of the raw material is coming from this sole supplier. Obviously would be classified as a key player. He's a key player for your business, right? Yeah, can you run your business without the sole supplier? See how much dependent you are on this key supplier. And even your key customers, right? Even your key customers are your key players. Then think about directors. Directors, irrespective of the countries or situations, have very high power. The chief executive officer, irrespective of the country or the situation, have a high power. The non-executive directors, the non-executive directors, irrespective of the country or the situation, have high powers. The external auditor, irrespective of the country or the situation, have high powers. There are so many stakeholders, right, who have default powers, irrespective of the country or irrespective of the situation they are in. So the government, the institutional investors, the major customers, the major suppliers, the directors, the CEOs, the non-executive directors, the external auditors, and even the regulators. The regulators have high powers. The regulators like the Security and Exchange Commission in America, the regulator like Security and Exchange Commission in America, the regulator like PCAOB in America, the regulator like the Financial Reporting Council in UK. These are all very, very important regulators, or the regulator like an SECP in Pakistan. These are all very important regulators. And the regulators in any country has a power. So are you understanding the situation that the stakeholders have default powers irrespective of countries and situations? But if you think about a pressure group, if you think about the pressure group will vary, right? The pressure group will vary from developed country to a developing country. The pressure group will vary from a developed country to a developing country. In a developed country, the pressure group will have very high powers, but might not be the case in a developing country. So are you getting a clear picture that being a director of a company, you need to sit down, you need to analyze your stakeholders, you need to think about your stakeholders' power, you need to think about your stakeholders' interest, and on the basis of that, you need to identify, should I classify the stakeholder as my minimal effort, or should I classify the stakeholder as my key player? Right? And remember, the key players are the one without whom running the business is impossible. Now, I remember in the last class, a lot of students classified Mr. Krull as a key player in that question. The key players are those without which running the company is impossible. So key players can be your directors, key players can be your CEO, key players can be your major customers, key players can be your major suppliers, key players can be your institutional investor. Your institutional investor is your key player. The government is not a key player, right? Because the government is a keep satisfied. The government do have a high power, right? Obviously, but the government do have a low interest. The government is not just focused on a business, right? The government is focused on the whole public. So the government only focus is not the business. The government focus is the whole country. So they do have a high power, they can exert power, but in a business they have a low interest, right? It is the regulator, right? It is the regulator which generally have a higher interest in the business. So the regulators can be the key players. Right, so I'll be giving you a drill at the end of the class, which you need to solve for the class tomorrow on the basis of the understanding of the mental metrics, and I want to see how you come good out on that equation. I'll give you a case study, and I'll give you 3 stakeholders in that case study, and you need to tell me where would you classify these 3 stakeholders. So that assignment will be given to you at the end of the class, and before the class tomorrow, you will interact with me on the WhatsApp group telling me that this stakeholder is in which position. Okay, is that clear to everyone in terms of the mental metrics? So you need to analyze the power and interest, right? You need to analyze the power, you need to analyze the interest, and you need to identify whether it is a minimal effort for me. Normally the workers comes under the minimal efforts. Keep informed is generally the public. The public comes under keep informed. keep satisfied, like an external auditor. The external auditor should be kept satisfied because the external auditor have a high power, but the interest is only in the financial statement. So the external auditor have a low interest but a high power. The government has a low interest but a high power. But then you have to have key players, your customers. Your customers are your key players. Remember the major customers, right? Not the minor customers. The suppliers. The suppliers are your key players, and your institutional investor are your key players. And even your pressure group is a keep satisfied. You have to satisfy your pressure group. But again you have to see the case study to identify them. And Alisa, this is without the trade union, right? In journal the workers are minimal efforts, right? But I have given you that example in my lecture, that if there are trade unions with workers, then they would automatically go to keep satisfied, right? So generally the workers are minimal efforts, but if you give them a trade union, they will automatically become keep satisfied. Okay, then Kabu, what about very skilled? Obviously, the very skilled workers, the skilled workers are the managerial staffs. Generally the factory workers are not treated the way the managerial staff are treated. If you are a chartered accountant, if you have done your MBA, if you have done your masters, and you're sitting in a company at a managerial position, obviously you will become keep satisfied, Kabu. But if you are a factory worker, you will remain minimal effort. But if you are a managerial staff, you are at the technical level, you are at the middle level of the organization, you will be dealt with respect, you will be a keep satisfied. I hope that is clear, right, Kabu? Skills, whether you are a chartered accountant or you become an ACCA and you go to an organization, you will not be treated as a minimal effort with ACCA, right? You will be sitting at a managerial position in like next 3 to 4 years. And when you're sitting at a managerial position, you will not be minimal effort. Is that clear, Kabu? Okay, perfect. Okay, now let's take a step ahead, right, from the Menlo metrics. Stakeholder theory. Now there are two theories on stakeholders. One theory on stakeholder is an instrumental viewpoint. One theory on the stakeholder is the instrumental viewpoint, and one theory on the stakeholder is the normative viewpoint. We have to discuss both the views, and then I'll get back to my Word file and then describe you what is the difference between the two viewpoints. Let's first start with the stakeholder theory, which has an instrumental view. The instrumental view of stakeholder relations is that the organizations take stakeholders' opinion into account only insofar as they are consistent with more important economic objectives. Example: profit maximization, gaining market share, compliance with corporate governance, full stop. So in an instrumental viewpoint, you take into account the stakeholders only when they are part of your profit maximization, only when they are part of gaining the market share, only when they are part of compliance. So that means you're taking a very limited view of the stakeholders. That means you are only concerned with those stakeholders who can contribute towards your profits, who can contribute towards your market share, and who can contribute towards your compliance. So in an instrumental viewpoint, in an instrumental I instrumental V viewpoint, in an instrumental viewpoint, you are only concerned with stakeholders. You're only concerned with stakeholders who can either give you profit maximization, or stakeholders who can give you the market share, and stakeholders who can help you with compliance. So you will not be worried about any other stakeholder if you have an instrumental viewpoint like a director. If a director of a company has an instrumental viewpoint, so the director would only be concerned about those stakeholders or prioritizing those stakeholders who are connected with profit, market share, or compliance. So please remember that before I get to my word file. Then second, directors who have a normative viewpoint. Let's see how the director with a normative viewpoint deal with stakeholders. The normative view of the stakeholder theory differs from the instrumental view because it describes not what is, but what should be. It is based on a moral philosophy. It is based on a moral philosophy centered around the notion of civil duties, which are important in maintaining and increasing the overall good in society. So see this, the normative viewpoint is not just concerned with the stakeholders who can bring you profit, market share, and compliance, but the normative viewpoint is concerned with the moral philosophy of increasing the overall good in society, of increasing the overall good in society. That means in a normative viewpoint, you will also be concerned about the public because public is part of the society. You would also be concerned about the local community because the local community is part and parcel of the society. So in the normative theory, you are moving around the moral philosophy, not just profit, but in an instrumental thought point, you're moving around just the profit. Let's find a better answer to normative viewpoint and an instrumental viewpoint in the context of a stakeholder theory. Let's take on the word file and start doing this analysis. Now, if you look at these two viewpoints, instrumental versus normative viewpoints on stakeholder. Instrumental versus normative viewpoints on stakeholders. Now try to understand the situation very clearly. There is a model which is known as a Carroll model. It's a very popular model, right? And it's a Carroll model which tells us about Carroll model for corporate responsibilities. For corporate responsibilities. Now, as per Carroll, any corporate means any company, right, has four responsibilities. Carroll model for corporate responsibility, and Carroll says there are four responsibilities of an organization, and it's up to them which or how many of them they follow. So Carroll says there are four responsibilities of an organization, right? But it's up to them which or how many of them they follow. So it's up to the organization, right? Which one of them they follow. Now you can pick that very easily, right? Carroll says there are four responsibilities of an organization, right? Let's make a table for that. Okay, Carroll says there are four responsibilities of an organization. Number one, economic responsibility. Number two, legal responsibility. Number three, ethical responsibility. And number four, philanthropic responsibility. So Carroll says there are 4 responsibilities of an organization: economic, legal, ethical, philanthropic. Let's see what they means. What are the meanings? Economic means to generate profit, maximize, maximize the shareholder wealth. Economic, which is such an important responsibility, right? Legal, compliance with laws. No business can survive without complying with laws, right? Your license can be cancelled. You can be penalized. Ethical, being good, being being a good being a good corporate citizen, being a good corporate citizen. That means doing doing the CSR, doing the corporate social responsibility. And philanthropic, giving giving donations, giving donations. Now, when we look at the instrumental view, the instrumental view is only concerned with the first two. The instrumental view is only concerned with the first two, this and this. But when you look at the normative view is concerned with all 4 of them: this, 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 and this. See the difference between the two. The normative view was on the moral philosophy for overall good of the society. For the overall good of the society, we should be giving donations, right? For the overall good of the society, a business should do the CSR. The business should do the corporate social responsibility, right? But the instrumental view is only concerned with compliance. The instrumental view is only concerned with market share. The instrumental view is only concerned with maximizing the shareholder wealth. So there is a big difference, right, between a normative philosophy and an instrumental philosophy. And you find such businesses, right? You do find businesses who never do CSR. And you do find so many businesses in every part of the world who are engaged in CSR, who are even engaged in giving regular donations to the NGOs, regular donations to the public, and working and helping the public. So what will the instrumental company be concerned about? The instrumental company will be concerned about what? They will be concerned about shareholders. If you look at the instrumental companies, for the instrumental company, who will be the important stakeholders? The important stakeholders for an instrumental company will be the shareholders, right? Will be the customers who contributes to your profits, will be your suppliers who contributes to your profit, will be the banks, because without a bank loan you cannot run a successful company. Regulators, because you need to comply with laws. The government will be your important regulator, will be an important stakeholder, because without government mandate you cannot run a successful business. Stakeholders, employees, your employees will be very important to you, because without employees you cannot generate the profits. But when you look at the normative company's important stakeholders will be all of the above from here to here, because they still believe on economic and legal. But see the plus, see the extra. They will have some extra stakeholders, because they are not just sticking to economic and legal, right? They're also sticking to ethical and philanthropic. So they would have the stakeholders like the local community, They will have the stakeholders like the NGOs, the charitable organizations, the charitable organizations, because they give charities to them. For them, the public would also be the stakeholder. The local community would also be the stakeholder. The NGOs will also be the stakeholder. And because they're working for the public and the planet, the pressure groups will also be their stakeholders. The pressure groups working for the people, the pressure groups working for the planet. So see which of the director has a broader mindset. If you are a director having an instrumental mindset, you will say that the only important stakeholders for me are the one who generates profit for me. Normally the instrumental company thinks that CSR is a cost, but the normative company thinks that CSR is not a cost. CSR is that we have to be a good citizen. So to be a good citizen is not the definition of an instrumental company, right? Being a good citizen is a definition of a normative company. So see, are you understanding that the normative company have broader stakeholders? There are more stakeholders associated with the normative company, because that's the way you run the business. So are there two different ways of running the company? You can run the company on an instrumental philosophy. You can run the company on a normative philosophy. So if you run a company on an instrumental philosophy, your connection with the stakeholder is with very few stakeholders. And if you run a company on a normative philosophy, your connection with the stakeholder is many. So now try to understand one very important thing here. All of you are familiar with the term known as corporate social responsibility. All of you are familiar with this word, right? Corporate social responsibility. Now try to understand, not every business indulge in CSR. Not every business indulge in CSR. It's only the businesses with normative philosophy. It's only the business with normative philosophies which do indulge in CSR, because they believe on the overall good of the society. They believe on the overall good of the society. So not every business indulge in CSR, right? Not every business indulge in CSR. It's only the businesses with normative philosophies which do indulge in CSR, because they believe on the overall good of the society. And the normative businesses also believe that businesses should be a good corporate citizen. They should be a good corporate citizen, which should not only seek profit, but rather should also spend some of their profits on society and on the welfare of the society, and the planet. You have seen so many businesses, right, which works for people and planet. You must have seen the normative companies, right? The normative companies do such things as follow. The normative company do such things as follow: working for the society, working for education, working for providing clean water facilities, providing uh, clean drinking water, providing health facilities. You must have seen these multinational companies. They're working with NGOs in Africa. We know a lot of parts of Africa are underdeveloped. There is a huge humanitarian crisis in a lot of part of Africa, and a lot of companies, a lot of multinational companies engaging with NGOs are working for education, clean drinking water, health facilities, not just in Africa, even in Asia, even in Pakistan, even in India, even in Bangladesh. They're working on these tracks to provide this, but only a normative company can do that. Education, providing clean drinking water and health facilities, and working for the planet, working for the planet. No deforestation, no deforestation campaigns. They run no deforestation campaigns. They run forestation programs. They work on global warming awareness, global warming awareness. They run programs for cleaning the seawater, reducing the emission. They work on recycling activities. You must have seen the 3 R's. The 3 R's are so important, right? The 3 R's: reduce, reuse, and recycle. They work on reduction of the garbage. They work on reusing the garbage. I was reading an example for McDonald's in America, that the cooking oil the McDonald's used for the frying purposes. Now you can imagine how much would that be. Now what McDonald's do basically is that the McDonald's recycle the cooking oil. They recycle the cooking oil. That means they're reusing the cooking oil, and they recycle the cooking oil, and they run their delivery vans in America on the recycled cooking oil. So see, they're reusing it. Then they're not just disposing of the cooking oil, rather they're reusing the cooking oil with some chemical experimentations, and they're using that in their delivery vans in America. So that is like a biofuel. So they're running their delivery vans in America on biofuels. So you need to identify ways of reducing your garbage. You need to identify ways of reducing your wastage. And which companies are engaged in them? Only the normative companies, which believe that we have some links with the society. And I hope you're getting a clear definition of instrumental companies and normative companies. And with passage of time, normative companies have increased in percentage, because awareness is increasing, education is increasing, and with that, this is increasing as well. So is everyone clear with normative and instrumental, and how they connect with stakeholders? And do you agree that normative companies have more stakeholders? Yes or no? Do normative companies have more stakeholders? Do normative companies have more stakeholders? Yes or no? Can I get your answers? Do normative companies have more stakeholders? And instrumental companies have less, right? Instrumental companies have less stakeholders. So are you getting clarifications on how instrumental companies work in the world, and how normative companies works in the world? So this word which you must have been listening for last 5 years, 10 years, a word known as CSR. This has basically progressed due to normative companies, right? So the normative companies have progressed this word, corporate social responsibility. And one final thing, remember one thing very clearly: CSR does not mean that the company is not earning profit, right? You are earning profit, but you're spending a part of the profit towards society. That is better. No company, no company can work without earning profit, right? Because you have to give the return to the shareholder. So ultimately, we say that CSR is basically P plus P plus P. 3 P's. Now you will say what 3 P's are. CSR is the 3 P's. Profit, people, planet. So see, the normative companies are not the normative companies are working for people and planet, but is the normative company compromising the profit for the shareholder? Yes or no? Is the normative company compromising the profit for shareholder? I need your response. Is the normative company compromising the profit for the stakeholder shareholders? No. Annalisa, yes, to an extent. Why? Do you know that there is a research which says that the companies who are CSR friendly have more customers, because the customers have become so aware these days that they try to buy the product of a company which is CSR friendly. But Annalisa, think about it. If you're spending a minor proportion on the society will have a good image of yours. And will the society buy more of your products? In America, in Europe, in Asia, the consumers have become so aware that they tend to buy the product of a company which is CSR friendly. So see, when you are investing, every investment gives you a return. And the businesses have a business mindset, right? So if you are investing something, are you investing something without getting any return on it? You need to think like a capitalist director, right? If you're a capitalist director, imagine if you are investing something, you are only investing because you know there is a return for it. So CSR becomes return for you, right? Because if you invest today in CSR, you will be getting return tomorrow. Is that clear, Annalisa? Okay, that's great, right? So we're moving out of the discussion now for normative. We'll come back to CSR because CSR is the part of the topic I'm going through. But I've just built up some fundamentals on CSR, which will later help me in my lecture. Okay, let's go back to the presentation. We have done the normative viewpoint and we have done the instrumental viewpoint. And please remember the Carroll model, right? Carroll says there are 4 responsibilities of the business. Note it down somewhere. The Carroll model is a very, very important model. Okay, now we are starting with a very, very important model. Tucker 5-question model. This is a very interesting exercise and you will enjoy this exercise, the Tucker 5-question model. Now, please keep tracking the models, which is in my part of the syllabus. I think the very first model we did was the Menlo matrix. The second model I told you is the Carroll model. And the third model we are coming across now is a Tucker 5-question model. Let's see what a Tucker 5-question model says. Whenever a business takes a decision, suppose a business wants to make a new factory, or the business wants to acquire another business, or the business wants to go out of the country, whatever the decision is. We know businesses take so many decisions each year. So whenever a business is taking a decision, the directors will call a board meeting. And in a board meeting, the directors have to think, is the decision profitable? And they will have arguments on it. And if they think the decision is profitable, they will say yes. Then they will think is the decision legal? Will the regulator be happy with us? Are we taking a decision which is in compliance with laws and regulation? Then it says, is the decision fair? Fair versus the stakeholders. Am I taking a fair decision? That means fair versus my stakeholders. Now just recall what we did a minute ago. If the decision maker is a instrumental decision maker, the stakeholder definition will be different, right? But if a decision maker is a normative decision maker, the stakeholder definition will be very different. Is that true? Fair versus stakeholder, but will the definition of stakeholder vary from a decision maker to a decision maker? Is that true? So from a decision maker to a decision maker, right? The definition of a stakeholder will vary, right? Instrumental decision makers, normative decision makers. Fair. Is your decision fair? You have to think about stakeholder. Are the stakeholders satisfied with your decision? Which stakeholders? Either the normative stakeholders or the instrumental stakeholders. Which stakeholders? That will depend upon which assumption you will take in the exam paper. Fair. Is the decision environmentally sound? The decision you are taking, is it an environmentally sound decision? And if you think your decision is profitable, if you think your decision is legal, your decision is fair, your decision is environmentally sound, so ultimately it becomes a right decision. So right is basically the sum. Right is basically the sum of four. Right is basically the sum of four. Profitable, legal, fair, sustainable is equal to right. And if any one of them becomes no, then automatically the right can become no. So it's easy to remember for exam paper, right? The 5 questions: profitable, legal, fair, environmentally sound, and right. Let's do first a quick analysis, and then I'm putting in front of you a case study which you will solve and give me the answer into the session today. Okay, so we started on with a very important topic known as Tucker 5 questions model, and a very important theory. Let's give it a proper reference: Tucker 5 question model, and let's build a perspective. Whenever a business whenever a business has to take a decision, the directors needs to analyze the decision in the context of the following questions. Number 1, is the decision profitable? Is the decision legal? Is the decision fair? Is the decision environmentally sound? And is the decision right? Now let's do a quick analysis, and I'm giving you an exam paper to solve on this. Okay, let's first do a quick analysis. Is it profitable? That means it will generate more profit or more income for the business. That means it's commercially attractive. It's commercially attractive, or it's commercially viable. It's commercially attractive and commercially viable from the shareholder perspective. From the shareholder perspective. So who is linked with profitable? Who is linked with profitable? The shareholders. Number 2, is it legal? The compliance of the decision with the laws and regulations. Is the regulator or the government, is the regulator or the government happy with the decision taken? So is the regulator and the government happy? So see, who is the stakeholder here? The stakeholder here is the regulator and the government. So if I am normative or if I am instrumental, the first two questions are important to both, right? As per the Carroll model, the Carroll was saying economic and legal. So whether I am instrumental or whether I am normative, will that make any difference to my profitable and legal? If I'm normative or if I'm instrumental, will that make any difference to my first and second? Yes or no? Will that make any difference to my first and second if I am normative or instrumental? And see which stakeholders have been connected. We have connected so many stakeholders here, right? Even before coming to fair. Okay, let me put this down in a table form. That will give a better answer. Okay, just give me 1 minute to bring it down in a proper manner, because that will really help you to understand how would you approach a question. If you're taking an assumption of instrumental, how would you decide things? And if you're taking an assumption of being profitable, if you're taking an assumption of being normative, how would you decide things? Okay, let's go this way. Suppose this is an instrumental company and this is a normative company, right? So is the decision profitable? Both the companies will look for it. Yes and yes, right? Both will look at it. Is it legal? And both the companies will look at it. Yes and yes. Right? Is it fair? Now, fair is versus what? Fair is versus the stakeholders. Fair is versus the stakeholders, right? Stakeholders connected with the decision, are they satisfied or not? Now, please be careful. Have we already considered two of the stakeholders, one under profit and one under legal? So will we repeat those stakeholders again? Because we have considered the shareholder in profit, we have considered the regulator under legal, and that is very, very important even for normative companies and even for instrumental companies. Now we are saying, is the decision fair for the stakeholders connected with the decision? Are they satisfied or not? And we know how big the difference could be here, right? How big the difference could be, because for instrumental, the definition of stakeholders is different, and for normative, the definition of stakeholder is different. So will they think about fair differently? I need your answers quickly, right? If I am instrumental and if I am normative, will that make any difference to profitable? I'm not getting any of your answers, please. No, my question was, Is the decision profitable? Will that make any difference between normative and instrumental? Will that make any difference between instrumental and normative? Is the decision profitable? The answer should have been no, right? Not yes. No difference, right? Both will remain the same. And is the decision legal? Will that make any difference between normative and instrumental? Okay, is the decision fair? Will that make any difference between instrumental and normative? Yes. And what will be the reason for yes? The definition of stakeholder, because normative have a different definition of stakeholder and instrumental have a different definition of stakeholder, right? So number 3 will be very, very important in the exam paper, because if you take an assumption in the exam paper of being instrumental, for you the stakeholders will be very different. And in the exam paper, if any student takes an assumption of being normative, the stakeholders will be very different. Okay, then comes number 4. Is the decision environmentally sound? Do instrumental looks after environment? Do instrumental looks after environment? No. Do normative looks after environment? Yes. So what will be the difference here? The instrumental would not be concerned about environment. The normative would be. The normative would be concerned about environment. So is the decision right? Will that vary from instrumental to normative? The normative will have a different right and the instrumental will have a different right. So is the decision right? Right? That will vary. That will vary from being instrumental to normative. That will. Okay, now that means all of you are now ready, right? For taking a question on Tucker. This is the question on Tucker. Okay, in this company, in this case, the company has to take a decision of constructing a railway track. You will read the case and you will tell me at the end of the case, you will apply the Tucker 5 questions to route A. There are 2 routes in the question, right? Route A and route B. You will be telling me route A profitability, route A legal, route A fair, route A environmentally sound, and route A right. And it's up to you which assumption you will take, and you have to tell me assuming what. Assuming what are you taking a decision. Now you have 30 minutes You will, I can put this question on the WhatsApp. Is that more convenient for each one of you? Because on the screen you cannot see this in full. So can I put this question in the WhatsApp? Okay, I'm putting this question on the WhatsApp. You will have 30 minutes. You will read the question on route A, and you will make a paper, and on or the word file, and you will say route A, and you will make, is it legal, is it profitable, is it environmentally sound? Use the 5 headings, and give me your justification. And I want to see your right. And on what basis have you taken the right? Have you taken the right on the basis of instrumental, or have you taken the right on the basis of normative? And once you are done with the reading and the writing of the answer under the 5 headings, you will take a snapshot and you will send it on the WhatsApp group. So I know you have done it. So the maximum time is half an hour. But if all of you do it before half an hour, I'll start resuming my answer to this question, and I'll justify what should have been the right answer. Okay, so I'm putting this question on the WhatsApp. Okay, I have shared the question on the WhatsApp group. I hope all of you have got it. And you have to read the case, and you need to apply the Tucker 5 questions on deciding to choose route A, right? Not route B, route A. So take route A in focus. See how would you apply the 5 questions to route A, and you have 10 marks for, you have 10 marks. That means 2 marks for each question. And I want to see how you conclude the right and how you conclude the fair. So you have max 30 minutes, and I want to see how you conclude. How you conclude, is it fair? And how you conclude, is it right? Is that clear to everyone? Everyone has got the question on the WhatsApp? Yes or no? Everyone has got the questions on the WhatsApp? Have you got access to that question, please? Can I get a yes or no answer? Okay, and is everyone now scrolling on the question, looking at the question and finding the answers? Okay, it's like 9:44. So after 15 minutes, I'll check your progress. and I'll see how many of you have taken the picture and send me on the WhatsApp. And on that basis, I'll decide when to resume the class. So I am in the live class waiting for your replies to come in. And as I get the replies, we'll resume, right? So now it's your time to engage into the SBL class. Okay, best of luck and see who gets the right answer. Okay, welcome back. And I hope that is enough time for you to drill on the RDC company question and taking your decision on the route A. So wherever you are, now you should stop and concentrate on how would I go about identifying the 5 questions and apply them on RDC. Now into that break of 15 to 20 minutes where you were engaged for working on this question, I got reply of Annalisa, and Annalisa, you were fairly on the right track, and you will see just the demonstration of my demonstration to see how much improvement you need to bring. And I also got reply from Sarah Zulfikar, and Sarah, I did mention some of the corrections, right? You need to incorporate in your answer, and you will see the corrections once I start putting the emphasis on the answer. So is everyone now ready? And everyone knows the case, right? So let's start doing the extraction under the instrumental thoughts and the normative thoughts. Okay, let's go with it. And all of you can hear me, right? My voice clarity is okay. All of you can hear me. That's perfect. Okay, let's start. RDC, route A, not route B, right? See how you do it in exam paper. Railway Development Company was considering 2 options for the new railway line connecting the 2 towns. Route A involved cutting a channel through an area designated as being of special scientific importance because it was one of the very few suitable feeding grounds for a colony of the endangered birds. The birds were considered to be an important part of the local environment with some potential influence on the local ecosystem. Right now, we are emphasizing on route A, right? And route A has a very focused stakeholder, and that is the colony of the endangered birds. Let's see how the case develops later for the colony of the endangered birds. The alternative was the route B, which we are not concerned with, which would involve the compulsory purchase and destruction of the Eddie Krull farm. So we are not concerned with the route B. So let's cross this paragraph off and let's go with the first para and let's go down with the third para. An independent legal authority has determined that the compulsory purchase price of Mr. Krull farm would be $1 million if route B was chosen. RDC considered this as a material cost over and above other land cost because the project net present value of cash flows over the 10-year period would be 5 million without buying the farm. This would reduce the net present value by 1 million if route B was chosen. Now see how important this is. If I go with route A, my net present value of the cash flows over the 10-year period would be $5 million. But if I go with route B, that would just be $4 million. There will be a reduction of $1 million, and RDC considers that $1 million as a material cost. RDC considered that as a material cost. So what is the profitability? Instrumental. The route A has a higher net present value of cash flows over a 10-year period The route A has a higher net present value of cash flows over a 10-year period, that is $5 million, which is $1 million, which is $1 million higher than route B. So obviously the shareholders will be more interested in the route A because the route A is giving them a better cash flows of a $5 million, which will reduce with a $1 million if the route B is chosen. So if you are a shareholder of a company and you know the importance of the NPV analysis, right? So on the basis of the NPV analysis, the route A sounds more commercially viable. So the shareholders will take interest in the route A, right, over the route B. Now that answer will remain the same in the route B. Thus, the route A is more commercially viable. And this answer will remain the same irrespective you follow the instrumental thought or you follow the normative thought. So simple answer pasted here. No change of answers between instrumental and normative. Now let's find the answer for legal. I'm reading the next paragraph, right? The local government authority, the local government authority has given both routes a provisional planning permission and offered no opinion of which is preferred. It is supported. So the local government authority has no issues whether you make route A or you make route B, because the local government authority is concerned with economic prosperity of the region. They think the new jobs will come into the region, and that's exactly what the government do, right? So the government has no issues, right? So is there any legal issues associated with the decision? Not at all, right? And please, okay, you can keep sending them on the WhatsApp. I'll be looking them after the class, but I have already started my lecture, right, on telling you the 5 questions. So please try to concentrate on those uh, illustrations I'm trying to give you, Moody and Kim Blendman. I have taken your answers, but I will be responding to them right after the end of the session. And I hope all of you are concentrating right on the screen and looking at how to go with it. Now, in terms of legal, the local government authority have no issues, right? Whether you make route A and route B. So that's so clear for them, right? The local government authority, the local government authority has no issues in the in either in either of the routes in either of the routes to make the railway line, and are much concerned with the economic prosperity associated with the railway line. Now see, the government is not even concerned about Mr. Krull, and the government is not even concerned about Save the Birds. The government is saying no, economic prosperity, and all of you must realize this, that economic prosperity is bigger than Mr. Krull, right? Economic prosperity is bigger than Save the Birds. Is that true? Is that false? Economic prosperity is bigger than Mr. Krull and is bigger than Save the Birds. Is that yes or is that no? I need your answers. Is economic prosperity bigger? So has the government taken the bigger decision or the minor decision? Has the government taken decision in favor of Save the Birds, or has the government taken a decision in favor of economic prosperity? So they have taken decision in favor of the economic prosperity, right? So that means, thus, the route A is legal, is legally viable. The route A is legally viable, and that same answer will be copy pasted into normative. So no issues with normatives and instrumental so far. So far, is it profitable is same for instrumental and normative. Is it legal is very clear for normative and instrumental. Now comes the tricky question. Is it fair? Now already the decision is fair for the shareholders as they are getting the commercial viability. They're getting the commercial viability of route A over B, of route A over B, and moreover, the local government authority is in agreement with so the local government authority is in agreement and is in favor of route A, is in favor of route A. So we have satisfied two of the stakeholders, right? We have satisfied the local government authority. We have satisfied the shareholders. So ultimately, the decision is fair for shareholders as they're getting the commercial viability of route A, and moreover, the local government authority is in agreement as in favor of route A. So thus, the route A is legally and profitably fair to stakeholders. So are we thinking about the save the bird when we are concerned with instrumental philosophy? In the instrumental philosophy, will I be considering the save the birds? Yes or no? In the instrumental philosophy, will I be concerned about save the birds? No, I will only be concerned about my shareholders, and I'll only be concerned about the local government authority. So are both of them satisfied with me? Are both of them satisfied with me under instrumental? So do I have a very clear answer for fair? The decision is fair for the shareholder as they're getting the commercial viability of route A over B, and moreover, the local government authority is in agreement as in favor of route A. Thus, route A is legally and profitably fair to stakeholders connected with route A. Save the birds. Save the bird. Affected with route A will not be considered under the instrumental viewpoint. Now when you go to the normative viewpoint, you will say the decision is fair to the shareholders as they get better net present value and fair to the local government authority as they get the economic prosperity, However, the decision to make route A is not fair towards save the birds, as the route A will involve damage to the colony of endangered birds. So the decision is fair, right, to the shareholders as they get better NPV, and fair to the LGA, the local government authority, as they get the economic prosperity. However, the decision to make route A is not fair towards the birds, as the route A will involve damage to the colony of the endangered birds, which needs consideration if RDC directors follows a normative viewpoint. Is that true? Will RDC directors consider the colony of endangered birds if they follow the normative viewpoint? So can you see the difference now coming under FAIR? So there is a big difference in writing FAIR under instrumental thoughts and normative thoughts, right? Environmentally sound. Again, the decision is very clear. If RDC directors, takes an instrumental viewpoint of choosing route A, if RTC directors takes an instrumental point of view for choosing route A, then the decision will not be considered. The decision will not be considered on the track of not being environmental friendly. Will we consider the decision on the track of not environmental friendly if it is instrumental? So if RDC directors takes an instrumental viewpoint, then the decision will not be considered on the track of not being environmental friendly, rather legal and economic will take precedence over environmentally sound. Is that true? Legal and economic will take precedence on your decision if you are taking a instrumental thought process, and vice versa. The RDC directors will be concerned towards the colony of endangered birds and could possibly think of redesigning the route A so it does not affect the colony of the endangered birds. The RDC directors will be concerned towards the colony of the endangered birds and could possibly think of redesigning the route A so it does not affect the colony of the endangered birds to ensure that route A is environmentally friendly. Route A is environmentally friendly and does not affect the ecological system Are you finding the difference between writing the first column and the second column for fair and sound? Economic and legal was the same, right? But see how things changed when we got to fair and environmentally sound. Are you getting the track of normative and instrumental? And is it right? If RDC, is it right? The RDC directors would choose route A as the right decision, on the basis that the route A is profitable and legal, and route A is profitable and legal, which dominates save the birds and their stands. So you will choose the route A, right? on the basis it is profitable and legal, and which dominates save the birds and their stands. So you will not be giving any consideration to save the birds and their stands, because it is profitable and legal is dominating save the birds and their stands. But if you are normative, RDC directors will need to rethink and redesign the railway line for Route A, ensuring that it does not affect the birds and it does not affect the bird, and also bring in the much needed economic prosperity to the region. So they should rethink, right? They should not just scrap the route A. They can think the route A and they can redesign the route A. They can bring some modification to the route A, and rather than the railway track passing over or passing through the colony, you can make the railway line passing on the left or right of the colony. So you need to make some modification. It will incur cost, right? And quite possible that the $1 billion difference you're getting on the net present value might reduce to half because of that modification. But you need to do that because you are following a normative stance. So are you getting the way of answering the question? Is everyone clear on the two sides? So in the exam, you will assume any one of them, right? Either in the exam, you will assume this, or in the exam, you will assume this. You will not stick to both of them. You're not writing under both, you're writing under one. And I have done the answer in columns just for the sake of the class, right? You have to do them in paragraph forms. Is everyone clear? Any questions, any confusions, any misunderstandings? Is that clear to everyone? Can I get a quick yes or no answers or your questions? Is that clear to everyone on the route A and how things have gone under the route A? And are all of you satisfied with the implementation of the Tucker 5-question model? Now, and will you remember it for exam papers? It's not a difficult model, right? You just need to think about whether you are instrumental as a student or you're normative as a student, and think about answering it. Okay, that's great, right? So let's take the journey ahead now from the Tucker 5-question model, and where we have done a practice, let's take one step ahead of this. Back to presentation. So we've done the Tucker 5-question model, right? Okay, there is an exercise which is the decision to build the new factory. You can do this exercise on your own based upon the question I've done with you, RDC. This is basically a class question, and I hope you can solve this class question on the basis of the understanding of RDC. So I am leaving this to your part, and you can just go through and solve this. I have already given the answer of this in my presentation, so you can see the answer itself. Okay, so you can do your exercise on those two slides. Decision to build a new factory. Think like instrumental, think like normative. Okay, now we are starting with CSR, corporate citizenship. We just got that at the beginning of the class today. Being a good corporate citizen, being a good corporate citizen. This is something which is known as corporate social responsibility. Now you just got some relevance of CSR under normative, Now, you know the normative philosophy follows the CSR. You got some ideas of CSR in my early lecture today. And let's now emphasize on corporate citizenship as a broader topic in the SBL course. Corporate citizen. Corporate citizen is a recognition that a business has social, cultural, and environmental responsibilities. See, can you understand this is normative business? The business have social, cultural, environmental responsibility. So can we say this is a business which is normally referred as a normative business rather than as being an instrumental business? So a business has a social, cultural, and an environmental responsibility. Which business? An instrumental business? No, a normative business. To the community. Which community? The public, the local community. Community can be a city, community can be a country. And for a business like a multinational company, the community can be the world in which it seeks a license to operate. So you have a license as a business, right? Whether you have a license for a city, you have a license for a country, you have a license for the world, as well as the economic ones, as well as to the economic ones. So even if we are a normative company, can we deny the economic responsibilities? Yes or no? Even if we are a normative business, can we deny the economic responsibilities? Can a normative business deny an economic responsibility? A normative business cannot deny the economic responsibilities, right? The normative business has to survive with economic responsibility along with social responsibilities, cultural responsibilities, and environmental responsibilities, right? So let's find the final answer and then start understanding the theories. Okay, we are starting with a fresh topic now, which is the topic known as corporate citizenship. So a corporate citizen who is following a normative philosophy. A corporate citizen who is following the normative philosophy will have social, cultural, environmental, and economic responsibilities towards the community, towards the community. Now, please understand that this community is equal to a city, this community can equal to a country, or this community can be world. You know the companies. Some companies just have an operations within a city. Some companies have operations within a country. Some companies have an operations in the whole world, normally known as multinational companies. So the community can be small, right? And the community can be big. Normative philosophy, social, cultural, environmental, and economic responsibilities. And if the corporate citizen, if the corporate citizen is equal to instrumental philosophy, then what will the corporate citizen do? The corporate citizen will only be thinking about economic responsibilities. So see, the definition of a corporate citizen under normative is wide. The definition of a corporate citizen under instrumental is narrow, right? And I have illustrated that many times in my lecture today. Now, there are many models And there are many theories which exist on corporate citizenship, which exist on corporate citizenship. So let's start exploring them, the models and the theories which exist on corporate citizenship, which are part of your syllabus. So let's start to understand those many models and theories which exist on corporate citizenship. And what you know as corporate citizenship, something known as CSR, corporate citizenship, right? Just 1 second. I want to show you something which will give you a realistic idea. Now in front of your screen, you can see the PepsiCo. And you know the PepsiCo is one of the leading companies when it comes to corporate social responsibility. Now this is a PepsiCo website which is just dedicated to CSR or something known as sustainability. See what PepsiCo is telling you here. It says since 2006 we have been on an important journey as a company, corporate citizen, transforming the way we do business so we can deliver strong long-term financial returns. What can they demonstrate? They can deliver long-term financial returns. They can deliver long-term financial returns. They can deliver long-term financial returns in a way that is sensitive to the need of the world around us. See the community. They want to deliver long-term financial returns to the world around us in a very careful manner. We are pleased to share the progress we are making on our performance with purpose. Performance is the economic performance, right? Purpose is a corporate social responsibility. So see this business, see the tagline they're giving on their website. They believe that we have a community around us and we have to be very sensitive to the community and we have to show the performance with purpose. And see this company, this is a Pakistani company. This is a Pakistani company, the National Food. And the National Food has made a very big impact in the whole world. It started its operation from Pakistan. Now this country's products are available in Australia, in Canada, in Middle East, in Far East. It has made a very big impact in the last 15 to 20 years. See, can you see their website? And can you see their website? And can you see the element of CSR coming on the top here? Corporate social responsibility. I'm clicking the corporate social responsibility and see what you can see under the corporate social responsibility. Education and literacy, which is a very big problem in Pakistan. Health and nutrition and community development. And if you click any one of them, you will see insights. See what are they doing for CSR. See what they are writing here. See, this will tell you there are normative companies in the world creating a difference for sustainable tomorrow In line with our efforts and promise to achieve a vision of 2020, we strongly believe in creating value for our all stakeholders, right? Not instrumental, normative, while translating it into betterment of community, environment, and the society through sustainable initiative. So is everyone getting that sound message of normative companies? Have you seen the tagline of National Foods in Pakistan? And have you seen the tagline of the PepsiCo International? So there are normative companies, right? Whether you look at that in your country or across your country, you will find companies doing CSR, corporate social responsibility. And I hope this message is going clear to all of you, right? See, they're doing so much for education and literacy. Okay, let's get back to our subject. So there are many models and theories which exist on corporate citizenship, right? So let's start connecting that to our syllabus now. The first model is known as Johnson and Scholes. Johnson and Scholes is the first model. And according to Johnson and Scholes, there are two types of organizations. One is a profit-seeking organization and one is a non-profit organization, NPO. So first of all, Johnson and Scholes says the first theory, right? The first theory is Johnson and Scholes. And the Johnson and Scholes says there are two types of companies. Number one, there are profit-seeking companies, right? And number two, there are non-profit seeking companies. Non-profit seeking companies. Can a non-profit seeking company be instrumental? Can a non-profit seeking company be instrumental? Give me your answer. Can a non-profit seeking company be instrumental? Let's see who is clever. Can a non-profit seeking company be instrumental? I need your answers. Very good answers, right? And Alisa, Sarah Zulfikar, perfect. No, a non-profit seeking company will always be normative. Is that true? A non-profit seeking company will always be normative. Is that true? Yes, non-profit seeking companies are those who work for welfare of the people, welfare of the public. Non-profit seeking companies are the charities, are the NGOs. So NGOs can never be instrumental. Charities can never be instrumental. They are normative. They are default normative. So let's find that answer. A profit-seeking company can be instrumental. Is that true? And a profit-seeking company can be normative. And a non-profit seeking company would always be normative. Is that true? Is that right equation to put on screen? Everyone agrees with this equation? Okay, great. Okay, now, according to Johnson, let me first complete NPO because NPO is more simple. According to Johnson, the NPO, a non-profit organization, is basically a shaper of society. They work for society. Is that true? The basic objective of a non-profit organization is to shape the society, work for education, work for health, work for people, work for public, philanthropy, shaper of society. So how Johnson is defining the NPO? Johnson is defining the NPO that the NPO is known as a shaper of society. Shaper of society. Shaper of society means what? They work for education. They work for health. They work for donations. They work for community issues, community problems globally. So they are shaper of society, right? No doubt about them. Non-profit organizations are shaper of society, no doubt about them. But when it comes to profit-seeking companies, they have two different views. They can be instrumental and they can be normative. Is that true? So Johnson and Scholes says that a profit-seeking company can be short-term shareholder interest, can be long-term shareholder interest, and can be a multiple stakeholder obligation. Can you see the picture? Short-term shareholder interest, short-term shareholder interest. What is dominating in the short-term shareholder interest? Is a short-term shareholder interest an instrumental company or a normative company? What can you understand from the picture? I need your answers. Is a short-term shareholder interest a normative company or an instrumental company? What can you understand from the picture? Instrumental company. Why? Because can you see the dominance of the dollar? Economic. Can you see the economic is the heavyweight? Economic is the heavyweight short-term shareholder interest, right? So the short-term shareholder interest is what? The short-term shareholder interest is instrumental. Short-term shareholder interest, because they only focus on economic and legal. Now, I have just shown you the report of National Foods. They were saying creating value for all stakeholders, and they have a vision long term. You see the Pepsi was saying deliver long-term financial return. How? Long-term financial return by engaging the community. So the Pepsi is not just getting profits, the Pepsi is also reinvesting the profit back to the community. So according to Johnson and Scholes, the short-term shareholder interest is a company which is only looking at the profits, dollar. Can you see the long-term shareholder interest just like Pepsi? Can you see the green planet? Can you see the green planet? So can we say the long-term shareholder interest are the company which basically comes under normative stance? Long-term shareholder interest. They are the companies which focus on economic plus legal and also CSR, because they believe that CSR generates long-term wealth of shareholder. Is that true? Do CSR generates long-term wealth of the shareholder? Why do companies spend so much on CSR? They must be getting any benefit of that, right? Why do companies spend so much on CSR? They must be getting any benefit of that, right? Without benefit, no company do anything. If Pepsi is doing CSR, Pepsi is getting the reputation. Pepsi is getting the long-term impact on the shareholders. So can a business do anything without benefit? Can a business do anything without benefit? So it's important, right, that CSR, because they believe CSR generates the long-term wealth of the shareholder. And then comes the last stance, multiple stakeholder obligation. Can you see the word changing? Shareholder. Now can you see the word stakeholder? Stakeholder obligations. Multiple stakeholder obligations. Now that means We have to place the multiple stakeholder obligation under normative, because the normative deals with multiple stakeholder obligation. But you need to find the difference. The multiple stakeholder obligation focuses on economic, focuses on legal, and focuses on the CSR. And you will say, then what's the difference between number one and number two? In the number one, we have economic, we have legal, we have CSR. And in the number two, we have economic, we have legal, we have CSR. But there is a big difference. The CSR is much wider than the CSR in long-term shareholder interest. For example, the CSR activities vary from minimum to maximum. Is that true? Is there any limits of CSR? Is there any limits of CSR? Can a CSR starts from minimum to maximum? Is there any limits of CSR? The long-term shareholder interest will do CSR, but that would be lesser. That would be lesser than the CSR being done by the multiple stakeholder obligation. For example, if I give you an example of a company like Unilever. Now, the Unilever not just involve in CSR towards people, but they are also engaged in providing CSR to animals. They're also engaged in providing CSR to the forests, to the plants, to the trees, to the sea life. That means they're engaged with planet. There are so many companies that they do CSR only for the people. And there are so many companies who do CSR even for people and for the planet. So which one is broader? The company which is doing CSR for people only, or the company which is doing CSR for people and the planet? How many companies there are in the world who are engaging with forest, saving the animals, saving the forest, saving the plants, saving the sea life? So not just the people, right? Also the planet, Are you getting my point? For example, PepsiCo says it has reduced salt by 20% in their chips. Is that something good for people or planet? They have reduced salt by 20% in their chips. Is that something of a CSR for people, or is that something of a CSR for planet? I need your answers. If PepsiCo says that they have reduced salt by 20% in their chips, is that a CSR for people, or is that a CSR for planet? Is it concerned with the health of the people? And what if the PepsiCo says it has ensured that their chips packets are 100% recyclable. Yes, exactly. It relates with health, right? It relates with people, right? Exactly. Good answer, Sarah. Now, if Pepsi says that the packet of chips we eat and the packet of chips we eat and throw, that packet of chips is 100% recyclable, is that something good for environment? Recycling? Yes or no? Now, if I take a chips packet, like I take the Lay's chips which are made by Pepsi, I go to the supermarket and I buy a packet of Lay's chips, and on the packet of the Lay's chips it's written it has 20% less salt. So I would be very much happy that it has 20% less salt. It's so good for me. But when I read the label on the packet, it says this packet is 100% recyclable. So if I put it into the dustbin, I know that this can be recycled 100%. So it is good for me and it is good for environment. So is that a broader CSR? And the broader CSR comes where? The broader CSR comes under multiple stakeholder obligation. Are you understanding the difference between the multiple stakeholder obligation? That the CSR is much wider than in the long-term shareholder interest. Or you can say the CSR includes people as well as planet. But in the case of the long-term shareholder interest, the CSR, the CSR only includes people. So the CSR only includes the people, right? In the case of the long-term shareholder interest, and the CSR includes the people and the planet in the case of a multiple stakeholder obligation. Is that clear to everyone? Are you understanding that there can be two types of companies, instrumental and normative? The instrumental includes the short-term shareholder interest, and the normative includes the long-term shareholder interest, and they includes the multiple stakeholder obligation. And then there is a non-profit organization, and the non-profit organization is known as the shaper of society. Any confusions, any questions so far? Are you enjoying the lecture today on CSR? How many of you have interest in CSR? How many of you take interest in CSR? And how many of you really study the organizations on CSR? Do you take interest in corporate social responsibility or not? See, can you see Unilever? Unilever is such a big company globally, right? And can you see Unilever website in terms of sustainable livings? See this? Improving health and well-being. Can you see they have a people impact here? If I just enhance this for you, can you see there's a people impact on the website, improving health and well-being? This is people. And can you see there is a environmental impact, reducing environmental impact, that is the planet. So can we say that the Unilever is a multiple stakeholder obligation? Unilever is a multiple stakeholder obligation. Will that be true? Multiple stakeholder obligation. Is that true? Yes or no? And can we say Unilever is normative? Unilever is normative and is following a multiple stakeholder obligation. Will you be able to do that in your exam case study to pick the company, to pick whether the company is a multiple stakeholder obligation? Are you understanding this through this Unilever example here? Okay, that's great. So this was just the Unilever example, right? And you know how strong, how big this Unilever company is. See, this says here, our vision is a new way of doing business, one that delivers growth by serving society and planet. Perfect, perfect. I think this is the best one we've got in the three examples. It says, our vision is a new way of doing business, one that delivers growth, so one that delivers profit, one that delivers profit by serving the people and the planet. So can you see all three of them coming together? Growth is the profit, society is the people, planet is the planet. So can you see this perfect statement coming from such a giant company? I hope with this statement you can understand the discussion we are doing since the beginning of the class today. Normative, CSR, people, profit, planet. Is that statement good enough for all of you to remember what CSR is and the businesses are doing CSR? Okay, let's do another example then. The next theory, Gray oven atom. Gray oven atom is another theory which will tell you about whether the company do CSR or whether the company don't do CSR, right? So let's start to understand the gray oven atom model. This is such an important model from your examination point of view, because this used to be such an important model in the P1 exams, which has now been replaced with the SBL exams. Let's find the gray oven atom model and see how we need to understand the gray oven atom model. So out of Johnson and Scholl, we are now starting with gray oven atom. Gray oven atom ethical stances. Now, according to gray oven atom, there are 7 ethical stances. In Johnson and Scholl, we found 4. Short-term, long-term, multiple, shaper of society. Now, according to Gray oven atom, there are 7 ethical stances. And please remember, these are ethical stances which relates to profit-seeking companies. Profit-seeking companies only. Gray oven atom does not make any differentiation between non-profit and profit. That was only a differentiation made by Johnson and Scholl. Okay, let's see gray oven atom and the 7 stances. Okay, let's see what those 7 stances are. The gray oven atom says there are 7 stances. Pristine capitalist, expedients, proponents of social contract, social ecologist, socialist, radical feminist, and deep ecologist. Deep ecologist. Let's start one by one. Pristine capitalist. Business have no obligation beyond legal and economic responsibility. So what is this business? Is this business instrumental or is this business normative? Pristine capitalist. Is this a normative business or an instrumental business? I need your quick answers. Please have a quick interaction in the classrooms, right? A lot of you are demonstrating a lazy attitude. I hope you're all alive and wake and charged up for the class. I need quick answers. How pristine capitalist, is it instrumental? Is it normative? Instrumental, perfect. Kim, Modi, Sarah, and Mohammed Rosan. Perfect answers. They're instrumental, right? So let's go back to the slide and say my first answer, pristine capitalist. Pristine capitalist is equal to instrumental. And all of you know capitalism, right? Capitalism is a greed for money. Capitalism, greed for profits. So pristine capitalists are instrumental companies, So will they do CSR? No, they will not do CSR. No CSR. They think CSR is a cost. They think CSR is a waste of time. They think CSR is a waste of money. Okay, next, number 2. This was number 1. Okay, let's go to number 2. Expedience. Social responsibility. Social responsibility may be appropriate if it is in the business economic interest. Are they instrumental or are they normative? They say social responsibility may be appropriate. They're thinking about it. They say maybe, if it is in the business economic interest. So they think CSR, if CSR brings profit, that's good. And if CSR does not bring profit to the business, it is bad. So can we say expedients are looking at the social responsibility on conditional basis? Is that true to say that the expedients are the companies who look at the conditional basis CSR, that if they think CSR will bring them some impact on profit, they will do CSR, else they will not do it? So are they trying to do a cost benefit analysis of CSR? Right? So they are instrumental even, right? They're thinking, okay, I'll do CSR if it gives me something. And then I'll not do CSR if that does not brings me anything. So are they following a conditional approach here, a cost benefit analysis? But are they better than instrumentals? Sorry, are they better than pristine capitalists? Are they better than pristine capitalists? Because the pristine capitalist was not at all thinking about it. At least they're thinking about it. Right? So where to put them? Number 2. Number 2 was expedience. Expedience is equal to instrumental companies, but they will think about CSR conditional. They will have a conditional CSR only if CSR brings economic gains. So they were saying no CSR. They're saying conditional CSR only if they bring gains to the company. So are we starting from 0 to something? Are we going from minimum to maximum now? Are you understanding? This is like continuum which starts from 0 and goes up to maximum. No CSR, number 1. Number 2, conditional CSR. Now let's see, will number 3 brings a better impact? Number 3, proponents of social contract with society. Even I start, you can understand there is a normative thought here. Contract with society, contract with people. So can we say this is the first normative stance? Social contract with society. There is effectively a contract between an organization and everyone who is affected by organization decision. Everyone who is affected by organization decision. Who everyone here is? Everyone here is the society, and society is taken in the context of the people, not in the context of the planet. You just read Johnson in school, right? Long-term shareholder view. Long-term shareholder view was only about people, right? Not about planet. So is a proponent of social contract and a normative company? Yes or no? Is proponent of social contract a normative company? Yes, right. And is it only looking at the people? Only looking at the people because it says social. Social means people. It's only looking at the people context. Contract with people or contract with planet? Does it says ecological contract or does it say social contract? So social contract means people or planet? People, right? Good answer, Kim. Okay, so that means we're getting the first normative company finally. Proponents of social contract is equal to normative company, and looking at CSR from people perspective, looking at CSR from people perspective, doing good for people activities, good for people. So we got the final first company, right? So let's classify them this way. The first two companies were normative. Sorry, the first two companies was instrumental. Then we finally got a company under normative. Okay, number fourth. Social is the people, right? And ecologist is the planet. So can you judge this company is normative? Business believe that business activities result in resource exhaustion, waste and pollution must be modified. So business is thinking that we do pollutions, we do waste, we do exhaustions of resources, and the business is believing that we should modify this. So are they concerned with planet? Is the business concerned with planet? And it says organizations must be socially responsible. Organizations must be socially responsible means organization should be responsible for people. So social ecologist, can we say Unilever is a social ecologist? Was Unilever doing both for people and planet activities? Is Unilever a social ecologist company? You just saw their website. Let's go back to their website. See this, society and the planet. So can we say Unilever is a social ecologist company? It is. So social ecologist is another normative stance. Social ecologist, again, it's a normative company. A normative company looking for what? Looking at CSR from both people and planet perspective. Is that good enough? People and planet. So can we say this is multiple stakeholder obligation? This is multiple stakeholder obligation. Can we say this is multiple stakeholder obligation? Okay, next one. Socialist. So does socialist means people or planet? Does socialist means people or planet? I need your answer. Socialist, people or planet? People. Ecologist means people or planet. Can you pick these two terms very carefully? Socialist, ecologist, socialist. So that means in this theory, we are talking about socialist. Let's see what's the meaning. Business seeks, businesses. Can you see the plural? Businesses, plural, not a singular. Businesses seeks to promote. What are they promoting? Seeks to promote equality. What does that mean? That means that if one company in the industry starts to work for people, the competitor starts to work for people, then another competitor starts to work for people. Now you know that there is something known as an industry norm. If one company starts to do something, the second company starts to follow it, the third company starts to follow it, the fourth company starts to follow it, fifth company starts to follow it, and it becomes equality. Is that true? If one company do something, the second company starts to do it, the third company starts to do it. Does it happens in an industry? Does it happens in an industry that one company follows the other company? One company follows the other company. Does this happens in an industry? So if one company, suppose if Unilever starts to work for people, the Procter and Gamble will start to work for people. The Kraft Food will start to work for people. Are you understanding the equality? Promoting. So you have to promote it. So if you start to do it, the other will follow you. But you are promoting what? You're just promoting people. You're just promoting society. So egalitarian equality, right, comes under normative. Socialist is equal to normative, and that means normative companies when working for people, when working for people or working for society becomes norms of an industry at large. Can you understand this meaning? When it becomes norms of an industry at large. So one company starts it, the second follows, the second is the follower, the third is the follower, the fourth is the follower, and one point in time it becomes an industry norm. I hope all of you are familiar with this word norm, industry norm. So socialist is that the whole industry starts to follow working for people. So working for people becomes a broader exercise of the society. Is that clear to everyone? Okay, then comes the number 6. Radical feminist. So that means this is something confined to a gender. Feminist, gender. Business aims to promote feminine value. Business aims to promote the feminine value. The theories prove that the feminines are more strong into corporate social responsibility. The theory proves that the feminine values are needed to do CSR, because the theory says that the feminine values are concern. Concern is a feminine value. Cooperation is the feminine value. Care is a feminine value. Care is a feminine value. And the thing that concern, cooperation, and care is needed for the people. And concern, cooperation, and care is needed with the planet. So they think that the feminine values are very important for concern, cooperation, and care. And concern, cooperation, and care is very important for people and planet. Will you work for people if you don't have any concern? Will you work for planet if you don't have any care for planet? Yes or no? Or will you work for planet if you have care? If you have a value of care? So will we work for planet if we don't have care? We'll only work for planet, right, when we have care for planet. So business aims to promote the feminine values such as cooperation in their culture. Now, how can you promote the feminine values? You can promote the feminine values through training. You can give training to your staff and tell staff that you have to show care and concern, or you can have a gender diversity in your company. You can have a gender diversity in your company. Promote the feminine values. But it has been proven in the last 10 years that the companies which have the feminine values or which have the gender diversity performs better in CSR. So what to write here? Radical feminist. Radical feminist is a normative company, and that it says that the CSR is linked with feminine values. CSR is linked with feminine values. So, and you have to promote the feminine values. You have to promote the feminine values as part as part of organizational culture, as part of the organizational culture. You have to promote the feminine values as part of organizational culture, either through training. It's not necessarily you induct the females in your culture. You can either do it through the training, or you can induct the gender diversity. You can induct the gender diversity. Whether you can induct the gender diversity, that means the females, right, in your organizational culture. Is everyone clear on radical feminist? So if a company have a feminine value, whether that feminine value is promoted through training or that feminine value is through the gender diversity, but a company which have the feminine value will perform better for CSR, will perform better for people and planet. So companies with feminine values perform better with people and planet. And you can relate this, right? If I can just show you one thing, uh, I can show you the website of Pepsi again. If I can show you the PepsiCo website again, and if I just show you their sustainable reporting, right? Just under a minute, right? Let this PepsiCo CSR report be downloaded. Okay, fine. The report has been downloaded, Pepsi CSR report. And can you see, I want to show you, see who is the CEO of Pepsi. Indra Nooyi. She leads Pepsi. She leads Pepsi. And Pepsi is the top 10 companies in corporate social responsibility. Can you see the implementation of radical feminist? This is a letter from Indra Nooyi, and Indra Nooyi is the person who leads this company, right? Indra Nooyi is the chief executive officer, right? Can you see the signature here of the person? Indra K. Nooyi, PepsiCo chairman and PepsiCo chief executive officer. So she leads the company, and that is why this company is so strong on CSR. That is why the company is so strong on corporate social responsibility. See how big this company is. The PepsiCo has a portfolio of $22 billion brands. And see the brands of PepsiCo. See the brands of PepsiCo. We and you, we all consume these brands on a daily basis. See how big the portfolio is of Pepsi. Are you understanding what radical feminist is? And the last one. Deep ecologist, you have to give me the feedback for the class today as well. How was your liking for the class today? How interactive the class today was, and what was your perception of your feedback for the class today? I'm just moving to the last 5 minutes of the class. Deep ecologist. Business suggest that man has no greater right. Man has no greater right. Man has no greater right to resources or life than other species. So now this is deep ecologist. So ecologist means planet. So, and we're going deep in the planet. Now, when you go deep into the planet, you will find trees. You go deep into the planet, you find animals. You go deep into the planet, you find sea life. You go deep into the planet, you find the endangered birds, endangered animals. See, so many companies working for WWF, the World Wildlife Federation. So many companies working for Antarctic, the polar bears, the white bears. So many companies working for the dolphins, the penguins, who are being affected with the global warming. So many companies working for plantations, deforestations, anti-deforestations. So many companies cleaning the sea waters. So deep ecologist is the maximum planet a company can do, right? Deep ecologist is the maximum planet a company can do. Deep ecologist is the normative company, and that is the maximum planet activities a company can do, like activities for endangered animals, activities for plants, activities for trees, forest, etc. Sea life. You must have seen these organizations, right? Organizations like WWF, organizations like Greenpeace, who cleans the seawater, organizations like WWF and Greenpeace. So the deep ecologist is the maximum planet, right? Are you understanding these stances? See how many stances have come under normative? How many stances have come under normative? Proponent of social contract, we started from people. Proponent of social contract, we started from people, right? From people, we went to people and planet. Then we went to socialist. Socialist was the people, but that was becoming the norm of the industry. Then the radical feminist was the people and the planet. People and the planet in the radical feminist. And then all of a sudden, we went to the maximization of the planet, and we got maximum planet under the deep ecologist. Okay, now that's the maximum, right? We're going through the class today. Let's do a quick recap now. Are all of you clear on normative and instrumental, which was the mainstay topic of the class today? Are all of you clear on normative and instrumental, which was the mainstay topic of the class today? I need your answers. And are all of you clear on Menlo metrics, where we started the class from? Then from the Menlo metrics, the second thing we went through was the Tucker 5 question model. Are all of you clear on the Tucker 5 question model? Then we did the third thing, corporate citizenship. We did Johnson and Scholl, and we did Greo and Adam. Now, please remember how many models have gone through. Just take a quick recap of the models we did in the class today, so that you know that these models have been done and you need to revise them. Let's do a quick recap of the models. Now, have we done the model known as Menlo metrics? We have done something known as a Carroll model for organizational responsibilities, and everyone should remember that. Have we done a model known as the Tucker 5-question model? Tucker 5-question model. Have we done a model today known as Johnson and Scholes? And lastly, we've done a model known as Gray over Adam. Okay, and I need your quick feedback for the class today, how good the class was today, because in each class we need to practice a question whenever that is needed. So the questions can come very randomly in any class, wherever that is needed for your concept building, going on the websites, exploring the corporate reports, going on the Unilever website, going on the Pepsi website, going randomly on different websites, exploring resources, exploring data. Have these websites built your concepts today on the companies that are doing CSR? Was it good to go to was it good to go to Unilever website, the National Food website, the Pepsi website? Was it good for you to understand that who is the chairman of Pepsi? How many of you must not be knowing who is the chairman of Pepsi? Now, will you remember who's the chairman of Pepsi? Indra Nooyi. She's the chairman and CEO of Pepsi. Will you remember that? So it's not just learning the SBL, right? It's learning beyond SBL, because that will really help you in exam paper. Right, so I'll be looking for your feedback on the WhatsApp group upon the effectiveness of the class today. And you know, I have a 4th lecture with you tomorrow, which is from 11:45 to 12:45 p.m. the Pakistan Standard Time, and I would be looking for your feedbacks on the class today on the WhatsApp group. That would really help me boost my lectures for tomorrow. And one last thing, that tomorrow class is from 11:45 to 12:45. You know the timings, right? And I'll be sharing the Word file with you in immediately after 5 minutes on the WhatsApp group. And you know that you have to show patience for recording. The recording will be posted approximately 4 hours from now. So I think 4 hours from now, the recording will be uploaded on your WhatsApp group. Okay, I hope you're enjoying SPL. You're enjoying SPL. This is my 3rd class, and I think Mr. Rajaz has taken 1 class so far. So in all these there has been 4 classes, right? So I'll be waiting for you to respond on the WhatsApp group about how effective the class was, and I'll be meeting you again tomorrow. Okay, have a nice day. Have a nice day, and have a good study plan for SPL, right? It's a very challenging paper, so spend a good time on it. Wish you a nice day ahead, and I'll see you tomorrow. It's time to say you goodbye and time to sign off, and thank you for being in the session. It was very nice to see your responses and your interaction across the session. Okay, goodbye and Allah Hafiz, and I'll see you tomorrow.